The unheeded warning. The vast chamber of the Imperial Grand Council stretched before Kraz Vorn like a sea of polished obsidian. Massive pillars of crystalline material rose to support a ceiling that displayed the conquered star systems of the Zendari Empire in shimmering holographic glory. Kraz's footsteps echoed as he approached the crescent table where 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in judgment. Supreme Chancellor Zax Tarek, his scaled skin reflecting the ambient light from the ceiling display, leaned forward with thinly veiled impatience. The other council members shifted in their seats, a mixture of boredom and annoyance evident in their posture. War Commander Vorn, Tarek's voice boomed, you have requested this emergency audience with claims of vital intelligence regarding the Terra system. Our schedule is pressed with the upcoming expansion initiative. Speak quickly. Kraz straightened his aging body, the scars of 100 campaigns visible even through his formal military attire. The biomechanical enhancements in his left arm whirred softly as he activated the holodisplay in the center of the chamber. Esteemed Council, Kraz began, his voice steady despite the tension he felt. I come before you with a grave warning about our planned incursion into Sector 8, specifically the Terra system. The hologram displayed a small blue planet, unremarkable except for the vast oceans covering most of its surface. This world, called Earth by its inhabitants, represents a threat unlike any the Empire has encountered in our expansion across 13 sectors. Councillor Drav snorted, her facial tentacles rippling with amusement. A threat. These humans barely have interplanetary travel capabilities. Our reconnaissance shows primitive nuclear weapons and rudimentary space stations. They haven't even unified their planet under a single government. Kraz nodded solemnly. That is precisely what makes them dangerous. I have studied their conflict patterns extensively, and I've cross-referenced with battlefield reports from the Merakian campaign, where I encountered human mercenaries. The war veteran manipulated the display, showing various human conflicts through history. Humans don't fight like the other species we've conquered. They don't follow predictable patterns or adhere to standardized military doctrine. They improvise. They adapt. And most importantly, they never stop fighting, even when victory seems mathematically impossible. Chancellor Tarek waved a dismissive hand. Commander Vorn, your distinguished service record grants you this audience, but you speak of primitive biological reflexes as if they constitute a strategic advantage against our technological superiority. Kraz's biomechanical hand clenched. Chancellor, I have fought in 37 planetary campaigns. I have conquered civilizations with technology far beyond these humans, but I have never seen a species that transforms so rapidly under pressure. He displayed footage from the Merakian campaign, grainy images of human mercenaries using salvaged Zendari weaponry with modifications that shouldn't have been possible without years of reverse engineering. They did this within weeks of capturing our equipment, Kraz explained. Their learning curve defies all predictive models, and they possess a quality our psychological profiles can't quantify, a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Admiral Venn, the military representative on the council, finally spoke up. Commander, what exactly are you proposing? That we abandon the expansion initiative because of some primitive biological quirk? Kraz met the Admiral's gaze directly. I am recommending we bypass the Terra system entirely. There are other, less problematic worlds that would serve the Empire's needs without the risk. The chamber erupted in laughter. Even the normally stoic Chancellor Tarek couldn't suppress his amusement. Risk? Admiral Venn said between chuckles. Our preliminary invasion plan allocates a single battle group, 20 capital ships with support craft, to subjugate the entire planet. The models predict total surrender within 14 standard cycles, with minimal Imperial casualties. Kraz's voice hardened. Your models are wrong. They don't account for human unpredictability. Chancellor Tarek's amusement vanished. Commander Vorn, your concerns are noted, but the Council has already approved the expansion initiative. Terra's strategic position and resource profile make it an optimal acquisition. Then at least allow me to leave the invasion force, Kraz implored. My experience with humans cold. That will not be necessary, Admiral Ven interrupted. Battle Group Zenith is more than capable, under the command of Fleet Marshal Dars. Your advisory role has been fulfilled with this warning, misguided though it may be. Kraz recognized the dismissal for what it was. His shoulders sagged almost imperceptibly as he bowed to the council. As you command, I only hope the Empire does not come to regret this decision. As he turned to leave, Councillor Trull called after him. Commander Vorn, your dedication to the Empire is commendable, even if your assessment of these humans is overwrought. Perhaps it is time you accepted your retirement honors. You have served long and well. Kraz did not turn back. Perhaps you are right, Counselor. My perspective may indeed be clouded by too many years of warfare. But as the massive doors of the council chamber closed behind him, Kraz Vorn knew with absolute certainty that the Empire was making a catastrophic mistake. 3 standard months later, Kraz Vorn stood in his private observatory, watching the real-time strategic display with grim satisfaction. Battle Group Zenith had arrived at the Terra system exactly on schedule. The initial orbital positioning had gone flawlessly, and the first wave of dropships had descended to establish beachheads on the planet's largest landmasses. Then everything had gone wrong. The humans had detected the incoming fleet despite the Empire's stealth technology. They had organized a unified defense despite their fractured global politics. And most disturbingly, they had weapons that shouldn't have been possible with their technological level. Kraz's private communication terminal chimed. The wrinkled face of Admiral Ven appeared, his normally immaculate appearance now haggard with stress. Commander Vorn, the Admiral's voice was tight. The Council requests your immediate presence at Imperial Command. Kraz allowed himself a small, bitter smile. Has something unexpected occurred, Admiral? Ven's facial scales flushed with anger. You know very well what's happening. Battle Group Zenith is facing unanticipated resistance. Unanticipated by you, perhaps, Kraz replied evenly. I believe I described this scenario quite precisely during my council testimony. This is not the time for self-congratulation, Commander. Ven snapped. Fleet Marshal Dars is dead. 3 capital ships have been destroyed, and the humans have somehow developed countermeasures to our shield technology. The Council needs your expertise now. Kraz's satisfaction evaporated. Despite his warning, he took no pleasure in Imperial deaths. I'll be there within the hour, Admiral. Have all tactical data ready for my review. When Kraz arrived at Imperial Command, the atmosphere was one of barely controlled panic. The holographic display showed the Terra system in real time, with Imperial ships in defensive formations around their remaining orbital positions. The human counterattack was represented by swarms of smaller vessels, thousands of them, employing tactics that made no sense by conventional military doctrine. Chancellor Tarek approached as soon as Kraz entered. Commander Vorn, the situation has deteriorated. These humans, he hesitated, they're not fighting according to any recognizable strategy. They never do, Kraz replied, studying the tactical display. They improvise based on immediate conditions. They're not following a predetermined battle plan. They're reacting and adapting on a minute-by-minute basis. That's impossible, one of the strategic analysts protested. They learn too quickly, he murmured. This was only the first encounter. The next will be much worse. Chancellor Tarek's expression was grim. Commander Vorn, the Council has authorized your immediate reinstatement to active duty. You will take command of the Terra campaign. Kraz laughed humorlessly. To salvage your mistake, Chancellor. The time for an easy victory is past. Now we face a protracted conflict against an enemy who grows stronger with each engagement. What would you have us do? Tarek demanded. Abandon the expansion initiative. Concede defeat to primitives. Kraz turned away from the display. I would have had you listen 3 months ago. Now, our options are limited, and none of them pleasant. He sighed heavily. I will take command, but understand this. We are no longer fighting for conquest. We are fighting for survival. The Empire's Reckoning. The Imperial flagship Dominion hung in space at the edge of the Sol system, its massive hull bearing the scars of multiple engagements despite having arrived only 2 weeks earlier. Kraz Vorn stood on the command deck, watching the tactical display with the intense focus of a predator. The remnants of Battle Group Zenith had been reinforced with 3 additional battle groups, bringing the total Imperial presence to nearly 100 capital ships with their accompanying support craft. It should have been enough to conquer 10 worlds. Against the humans, Kraz feared it might not be enough for one. War Commander, the human delegation has responded to our communication, reported Communications Officer Trell. They are rejecting our terms. Kraz wasn't surprised. His offer of limited occupation with human autonomy under Imperial oversight had been a reasonable compromise by Zendari standards. To humans, any surrender was unthinkable at this stage. They're stalling. Strategic analyst Vezek suggested. Their orbital defenses are still under construction. They need time. Kraz shook his head. No. They're ready now. The communication was a courtesy, nothing more. How can you be so certain? Asked Sub-Commander Laris, who had become Kraz's reluctant second-in-command after the death of her predecessor. Because I understand them now, Kraz replied. Humans don't think like us. They're not building defenses to optimal completion before engaging. They're building enough defenses to have a fighting chance, and they'll improve them during combat. He turned to the weapons officer. Begin the attack sequence. Target their orbital platforms first, then their ground-based launch facilities. The massive Imperial fleet surged forward, energy weapons charging as they approach Earth's defensive perimeter. The first salvos were devastating, overwhelming several human orbital platforms in seconds. But the humans had anticipated this. Their defensive satellites, previously hidden behind stealth technology reverse-engineered from captured Imperial ships, suddenly activated. Hundreds of them, each small enough to evade standard scans, but numerous enough to create a deadly web of counterfire. Evasive maneuvers. Kraz ordered as the first Imperial frigate exploded under concentrated fire. Deploy countermeasures and recalibrate shields to dispersal pattern Omega. The battle quickly devolved into chaos as human ships launched from the planet's surface, using their smaller size and atmospheric capabilities to perform maneuvers that Imperial vessels couldn't match. They darted between the larger Zendari ships, targeting engines, weapon systems, and shield generators with surgical precision. They're inside our formation, Sub-Commander Laris reported tensely. 15 capital ships reporting critical damage. Kraz studied the patterns. They're not just attacking randomly. They're hurting us. He zoomed the tactical display outward, seeing the bigger picture. They're pushing us toward their defense grid while keeping us from achieving a consolidated formation. He quickly issued new orders. All ships, break by squadron and execute dispersal pattern Krell. Get clear of their crossfire zones and regroup at coordinates Alpha 9. As the Imperial fleet struggled to disengage, a new threat emerged. Human fighters, previously thought to be simple atmospheric craft, revealed an unexpected capability. They transformed in mid-flight, reconfiguring into more maneuverable or more heavily armed configurations depending on tactical needs. Impossible, Weapons Officer Drav breathed. Their technology can't support that level of mechanical complexity. Their technology couldn't 3 months ago, Kraz corrected. They've adapted, probably based on salvaged Imperial transformation modules from the first battle. The human fighters swarmed around the Imperial capital ships, their transforming capabilities making them nearly impossible to target effectively. 3 more Imperial cruisers fell to the coordinated assault. Aboard the Dominion, alarms blared as a squadron of human fighters broke through the defensive screen and targeted the flagship directly. The deck shuddered under Kraz's feet as impacts registered against the shields. Shields at 60%, reported the defense officer. They're targeting our starboard propulsion matrix with some kind of resonance weapons. Kraz grimaced. The humans had identified a fundamental weakness in Imperial shield technology. The harmonic vulnerabilities that allowed energy to be channeled for propulsion also created potential failure points if struck at precisely the right frequency. Rotate shield harmonics continuously, he ordered. Don't give them a stable target pattern. But the humans adapted almost immediately, their weapons shifting frequency in response to the Imperial countermeasures. The Dominion's shields faltered, then collapsed along the starboard quarter. Explosive decompression tore through 3 decks before emergency containment fields activated. Casualties on decks 9 through 11, reported Medical Officer Sarn. Engineering reports critical damage to the secondary power core. Kraz made a rapid assessment. The battle was lost, had been lost before it began. The humans had prepared too well, learned too much from the first encounter. All ships, he commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Execute emergency withdrawal. Retreat to Proxima Relay Station immediately. Sub-Commander Laris stared at him in shock. War Commander, the Council ordered us to secure this system at all costs. The Council isn't here, Kraz said grimly. I am, and I will not sacrifice this fleet in a battle we cannot win. Execute the withdrawal. As the Imperial ships disengaged, the human forces pressed their advantage, continuing to harass the retreating vessels and inflicting additional damage. By the time the last Imperial ship entered FTL, nearly 30% of the combined battle groups had been destroyed or disabled. The Imperial Council chamber was silent as Kraz Vorn finished his report. Gone was the earlier skepticism and condescension. Now the council members regarded him with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. So you're telling us, Chancellor Tarek said slowly, that despite committing 4 battle groups, nearly 1/4 of our entire naval capacity, we not only failed to subjugate this primitive world, but suffered catastrophic losses in the attempt. Yes, Chancellor, Kraz replied simply. And worse, the humans are now in possession of significant quantities of Imperial technology. Their rate of technological advancement was already exceptional. With access to our systems, even damaged ones, they will make quantum leaps in capability. Could we not simply commit more forces, suggested Councillor Draff. The full might of the Imperial fleet would fail just as completely. Kraz interrupted. The humans have our measure now. They understand our tactics, our technology, our weaknesses. More ships would only give them more targets, more technology to salvage. Then what do you propose, War Commander? Admiral Venn asked, his earlier antagonism replaced with reluctant deference. Kraz had been considering this question since the retreat. We sue for peace. The Council erupted in protests. The very idea was anathema to the Empire's expansionist ideology. Never in its 1,000-year history had the Zendari Empire negotiated with a species it had attempted to conquer. Chancellor Tarek raised a hand for silence. Explain your reasoning, War Commander. The humans have demonstrated that they can defeat us militarily, Kraz said bluntly. But more importantly, they've shown they can adapt to and counter our technology at an unprecedented rate. If we continue this conflict, one of 2 outcomes is inevitable. Either we commit increasingly larger forces until our defensive capabilities in other sectors are compromised, or the humans develop the means to take the fight to our core systems. He let that sink in before continuing. However, humans have a cultural predisposition toward negotiation when offered in good faith. They can be reasonable when not threatened. I believe we can establish a treaty that recognizes their sovereignty while still allowing for mutually beneficial relations. You're suggesting we treat them as equals? Councillor Trull asked incredulously. I'm suggesting we treat them as they are, Kraz replied. A species that has earned our respect through combat prowess. The Empire has incorporated other species through means besides conquest. This would not be without precedent. Chancellor Tarek studied Kraz thoughtfully. And if they refuse our peace overture, if they demand reparations, or, worse, decide to pursue us back to our territory, then we will have lost nothing by trying, and we will at least have bought time to prepare our defenses, Kraz answered. But I don't believe they will. Humans are aggressive when threatened, but they're not naturally expansionist. They prefer their homeworld and its immediate vicinity. After hours of debate, the council finally agreed to Kraz's proposal, though with obvious reluctance. Kraz himself would lead the diplomatic mission, returning to Earth, not as a conqueror, but as an envoy. 6 months later, Kraz Vorn stood in the United Nations General Assembly in New York, the first Zendari to set foot on Earth in a non-combat capacity. Before him were representatives from every human nation, regarding him with emotions ranging from hostility to cautious curiosity. "People of Earth," he began, his translator converting his words to multiple human languages simultaneously. "I come before you not as a commander of the forces that sought to conquer your world, but as a representative of a civilization that has come to recognize your unique place in the galaxy." He paused, looking at the faces around him, so different from his own species, yet now familiar after months of negotiation. "The treaty we have crafted together marks the beginning of a new relationship between our peoples. The Zendari Empire acknowledges Earth's sovereignty and territorial rights to your solar system. We offer technology exchange on mutually agreed terms and trade routes that will benefit both our civilizations." The human diplomats remained expressionless, but Kraz could sense their measured satisfaction. They had fought the Empire to a standstill and forced it to the negotiating table, an unprecedented achievement. "In my long military career," Kraz continued, "I have encountered many species across many worlds. None have demonstrated the resilience, adaptability, and determination of humanity. These qualities make you formidable opponents, but they could also make you valuable allies. The galaxy is vast and not always hospitable. There are threats that neither humans nor Zendari have yet encountered. Perhaps together, we can face whatever comes with greater strength than either of us could muster alone." As Kraz concluded his address, and the human representatives stood to acknowledge the treaty's ratification, he reflected on how completely his prediction to the council had been vindicated. The Empire had indeed come to regret ignoring his warning about humanity. But perhaps that regret could yet be transformed into something more productive, a partnership that might reshape the future of the galaxy. For Kraz had learned something about humans that the Empire had yet to fully appreciate. As terrible as they were as enemies, they could be even more remarkable as friends. And in a universe full of unknown dangers, such friends might be exactly what the Empire needed to survive the challenges ahead.